Hi guys, in this video we'll be covering the leftover eyelid diseases and the diseases of the lacrimal apparatus. So first of all, the leftover diseases of the eyelids will be your ptosis, ectropion, entropion, and your blepharochalasis, floppy eyelid syndrome, and your congenital malformations. So of these, ptosis, ectropion, and entropion are very important. So ptosis, it can be either congenital or an acquired abnormality where there's a low position of upper eyelid. So the different types or causes of ptosis are either neurogenic, myogenic, aponeurotic, or mechanical. So neurogenic causes are your third nerve palsy or your Horner syndrome. The myogenic causes can either be myopathic or neuromyopathic. So myopathic example would be your myotonic dystrophy, and your neuromyopathic would be a myasthenia gravis. So your aponeurotic will be a defect in the levator aponeurosis. Your mechanical will be gravitation effect due to growth of some kind of tumor. So how we are going to examine ptosis is by using four measurements. So the marginal corneal light reflex distance, palpebral fissure height, and levator function, upper eyelid crease. So these are the four distances which we measure to uh, examine or diagnose ptosis. The normal values of each of those are also given here. You can have a look at them. And so there are two types of ptosis. It can be either simple congenital ptosis or involutional ptosis. So simple congenital ptosis is a developmental failure of the neuronal migration, and this it can present with Marcus jaw winking. So what this is stimulation of the ipsilateral pterygoid will retract the ptosis. So that is a very important sign shown in 5% of the people with congenital ptosis, and the treatment for this would be levator resection. Moving on, involutional ptosis. It's age-related dysfunction of levator aponeurosis. So high or absent upper lid crease with deep sulcus, and it has good levator function. So that would be your involutional ptosis. Then moving on to your ectropion. So ectropion is of two types again, involutional and cicatricial. So involutional present with epiphora, low lid ectropion, and exposed tarsal conjunctiva. What basically happens is, if this is your eyeball, then your eyelid is going to move outside like this. So that will be your ectropion, that will expose the conjunctiva over here, this conjunctiva over here and here. So that will be your ectropion. So the treatment for involutional ectropion will be your horizontal lid shortening. Your cicatricial ectropion is where there's some kind of contraction that pulls the lid away from the globe due to either trauma or chronic dermatitis or ichthyosis. So this is relieved by pushing the skin up over the orbital margin, and opening of the mouth usually accentuates or increases the ectropion. So the treatment for this would be scar tissue excision with lengthening procedure. So that is about ectropion. Moving on to entropion, there are three types of this paralytic ectropion. So I forgot to mention about that. It might occur in facial nerve palsy, the same symptoms epiphora, retraction of upper and lower lids, and exposure keratopathy. The treatment options are lubrication, tarsorrhaphy, which are your conservative management, your canthoplasty, your canthal sling, and gold weight implantation are all surgical methods. So your entropion or inward drooping of your eyelids can either be involutional or cicatricial. So involutional, again, age-related changes due to tissue laxity and dysfunction of lower lid retractions. Cicatricial would be scarring of palpebral conjunctiva, pulls the lid margin towards the globe. So the treatment option for both would be your for involutional, you can do lubrication, lid taping, transverse everting sutures, canthal sling, V's procedure, and Jones procedure. For cicatricial, you can perform can give corneal protection or tissue replacement with grafting. So other diseases which you need to read about are your blepharochalasis, which is again a type of ptosis, and floppy eyelid syndrome. So they are interesting conditions. If you have time, please go read about them. And then finally we'll talk a little bit about the congenital malformation. So the picture shown here is of coloboma, which is the most important one of them. The other ones are epicanthus, telecanthus, epicanthus inversus, epiblepharon, and cryptophthalmos. So cryptophthalmos is where there is like eyelids are it can be either complete or incomplete. So incomplete, that's complete blockage of the eye by the eyelids due to improper development. So that would all be all about your eyelid diseases. Moving on to the lacrimal apparatus. So this is the lacrimal apparatus. It has a lacrimal gland, and then tears are secreted over here, and then they enter into the lacrimal canaliculi through the lacrimal punctum over here, and then its lacrimal sac, and then nasolacrimal duct, and through valve of Hasner are excreted out via the nose. So that is the anatomy which you need to know. So there are that the biggest problem with this lacrimal apparatus, that it might be blocked at any one of these areas. So there can be an acquired block or a congenital block. So the various acquired blocks are either can be your punctal stenosis, which is primary or secondary, your canalicular obstruction, your nasolacrimal duct obstruction, or dacryolithiasis. So your primary punctal stenosis is due can be due to idiopathic causes or chronic marginal blepharitis, herpetic lid infection, or conjunctival cicatrization. So the treatment is you need to do dilatation alone. Secondary punctal stenosis, there is a narrow inferior punctum associated with punctal eversion. So the treatment for this is retroperitoneal uh, retropunctal cautery and medial conjunctivoplasty. So that is the treatment for secondary punctal stenosis. Then canalicular obstruction, the causes can either be congenital or acquired. So congenital is malformation of the canaliculi, and acquired can be due to trauma, herpes simplex, or mediation and chronic dacryocystitis, dacryocystitis. Okay. On lacrimal irrigation, there will be a soft stop of the overflow, and then the treatment for this would be your intubation using silicone stents, canalicular dacryocystorhinostomy. So, along with the removal of the lacrimal sac, you also remove the canaliculi, Lester Jones tube insertion. So, those are all the treatment options for canalicular obstruction. Nasolacrimal duct obstruction, again idiopathic trauma, V. granulomatous and nasopharyngeal tumors. So this is going to cause hard stop in your lacrimal irrigation, and the treatment options for this would be your dacryocystorhinostomy and or stent insertion. Moving on to the last condition will be your dacrylithiasis. So this is the inflammatory obstruction with tears, stagnation, and lacrimal epithelial metaplasia. So this causes intermittent epiphora and recurrent dacryocystitis. Treatment is DCR. So those are all your acquired obstructions. Your congenital obstructions can either be a nasolacrimal duct obstruction or a dacryoceal. So dacryoceal is basically a collection of amniotic fluid or mucus in the lacrimal sac caused by imperforate Hausner valve. So this is the Hausner valve over here, and it causes some bluish cystic swelling on the lacrimal sac area. The treatment for this will be probing. The other one is nasolacrimal duct obstruction, where there's delay. So while developing, there's delayed canalization of lower end of the nasolacrimal duct. So the treatment for this would be your massage of lacrimal sac. So basically, what we've been seeing are the various obstructions which can happen. So it can be either a punctal stenosis, which is primary, secondary, and then a canalicular obstruction, and finally canalicular obstruction and nasolacrimal duct obstruction over here. So those are the various types of obstruction which can happen. So now moving on to the last part for today, the infections. So there are only two main infectious conditions of the lacrimal apparatus: chronic canaliculitis and dacrocystitis. So canaliculitis is due to Actinomyces israeli, and there is unilateral epiphora with refractory chronic mucopurulent conjunctivitis. So this presents with punctum with pericanacular edema as a clinical sign, and there are mucopurulent discharge present. So the treatment options for this are topical antibiotics, and transconjunctival canalectomy with curettage. So those are the treatments for chronic canaliculitis. Finally, dacryocystitis. This is the most important part in the whole of lacrimal apparatus. So it can be of either acute or chronic type. So acute is going to have a medial canthal pain with epiphora and tense swelling. So these three things are very important for acute dacryocystitis. There are three different stages of this disease. The first stage cellulitis, then lacrimal abscess formation, and finally fistula formation. So moving on to chronic dacryocystitis, it's the chronic recurrent conjunctivitis, a reflex of mucopurulent material when pressure is over the medial canthus with or without mucoceal. So the different stages of this disease are your chronic catarrhal stage, lacrimal mucoceal, your chronic suppurative dacryocystitis, and your chronic fibrotic sac. So the treatment option for both of these would be your DCR. So when you're talking about dacryocystitis, there are two things which you need to know. The first thing is your syringing test to check the nasolacrimal duct patency, and second thing would be a Jones testing. So there are two types of Jones testing. One is Jones testing, where you just put the dye over there and you check if there's any regurgitation of fluid, and then the second one, you actually syringe the dye inside and check for regurgitation, and that is about Jones testing. And this is just a summary of dacryocystitis. Just have a good look at them. So that will be all for this video. I hope you found it really useful. Thank you.